So with that, I'd like to welcome Geno Leech. Geno's been here since the beginning. He's only missed a couple of years when he was dredging down in the Gulf, but glad to have him back. Hey, Geno.
Welcome back to Astoria. Yeah, I lost some of my fastball. I'm a knuckleball pitcher now out of the bullpen. I'll try to recite these if I can. If not, I'll go back to the page. So all my stuff goes back 30, 40, up to 50 years around this town. And, I got nothing recent, but then again, people watch old movies, right? It's called Doc Rat. Everybody got to have one. Bought her from an old saw filer named Rudy out in Kissville. $300, 65 Dodge half-ton, slung lower than a basset hound. Headlights bigger on a satellite dishes. Her paint had faded to decommissioned navy gray, the color of a sad, forgotten fleet oiler in a Brownsville boneyard. She was a perfect dock rat, low maintenance, perfect girlfriend. Dependable manual choke, always fired right up, purred like post-sex in a candlelit bedroom. She got me to and from an old farmhouse in Lewis and Clark for a few years while I was dragging crab fishing. And trudging up the ramp after a trip, packing a bucket of bootleg Butsky fillets or hand-picked jumbos. There she was, my connection to home, waiting patiently as a faithful old gray-muzzled tavern dog. Thank you. Yeah, Blair Minor, he probably had the classic dock route in town. Man, it was an old Datsun, I think it was. He turned into a flatbed, put dualies on it. I got a poem about it. I'm not going to do it right now, but it's in this book I have called Waterlogged. It's over there in that shop over there. I'm terrible about marketing stuff. I had these books, I gave them all away. Last FisherPoetry, I sold 25 of them, I had all kinds of boozing money, and I said, God, why didn't I do this 2 years ago, you know? Another guy had a dock rat, was a guy named Roy Gilroy, man. He was around here years ago, had an old slab called the Nootka Rose. It was a Mercury Marquis, you know. I love that car. You could play basketball in the trunk and ice hockey on the hood, you know. So this one is, I'm going to read this one here. It's in this little book here. And it's called Screamin' Jimmy. Everybody, a Screamin' Jimmy is usually a Detroit diesel. You know, that's their nickname, Screamin' Jimmys. Well, there's been a few skippers named Screamin' Jimmy. Probably no matter what coast you're fishing off of. And so I fished with a guy named Sig Heil Lyle. Always annoyed Lloyd, Skinbook Bob, and a bunch of others. So anyway, here's Screamin' Jimmy. This guy could beller barnacles off the wreck of the Peter Iredale. And she's been on the beach since 1906. Sounded like a nice guy on the phone. Said he got my number off the board at Hugo's fuel dock. Wanted to know if I'd be interested. Finishing out the season on the Bayou Black, a double-rigged shrimper. His voice was deeper than a double-bottom tank, a smoker's barbecued baritone that made me think of mass graves of cigarette butts and beanbag wheelhouse ashtrays. His portrayal of a recent winning streak featuring high-volume clean toes of 80-count shrimp made it sound as if I'd be farting through silk shorts in no time. Didn't know this guy, but I knew the boat. Punch-drunk old slab up from the Gulf. I saw her a few times at East Basin, rubbing up against white-wall tired fenders, tugging on tattered tie-up lines, as if she wanted to go back to the bayous with the gators. After reinforcing the virtues of the Bayou Black, the guy went for the kill and played the guilt card. He beckoned softly and tenderly, like a cheap suit preacher at an altar call. That had enough. What time you want me on the boat, I asked. Just after last call for alcohol, partner, East Basin. As I shouldered a sea bag down the ramp, a raggedy-ass Ford Ranchero rolled up and parked along the west rail. Out of adjustment, the headlights aimed skyward as if searching for low-level bombers. Didn't know this guy, but I knew the Wrecking Ball Ranchero, Davy Jones, Mermaid Tavern, Brass Rail, Desdemona Club, Club 13, Fiesta Club. He caught up with me on a ramp, wiry, highway to hell looking guy in hydraulic oiled sweatpants. Going out with Screaming Jimmy, he rasped. Who's Screaming Jimmy? Bayou Black, old double rigger. Guess I'm going. Know the boat, but not the captain. Yeah? Well, you will. Follow me, bro. We're the replacements. Yeah, I fished on some boats, man. I was on the Pacific Loser, the Northern Failure, the Rodney Dangerfield, Tonya Harding. I about hung it up, man, so I'm down at the East Basin and catching this boat. I walked way out, and I could barely see the name, but I saw this arrow pointing up to the wheelhouse. I got closer and closer. I said, I'm with stupid. Okay, everybody likes your barroom brawler things, or they used to. Well, anyway, this is one of my shirt-tail in-laws, my wife's second cousin. Matter of fact, this old junk, vintage hardware right down the street, that's a house off his old boat. The Doreen was in the family for many, many, many years, still in that family. I made a couple trips on there picking up Larry's crab pots. His old man was running a boat. He was in jail. I don't know, South Bend or Shelton, I forget which, but you could tell he'd been in there a long time because all the buoys was mossed up. So here we go, chivalry. Larry could hump, pack, and stack Dungeness crab pots as if they were jelly donuts. Bull-shouldered and oxen-necked. He sported bleach-bottled biceps and coffee-can fists that had introduced aspiring barroom brawlers to cold and uncaring concrete sidewalks, gravel parking lots, and tavern hardwood floors. Larry knew the ins and outs of barroom etiquette. The Red's Flame Room in Oahu, a sport fisherman from the city, insulted Larry's cousin on her way to the ladies' room. Defending her honor, Larry palmed a satellite dish-size ashtray and slammed it against the offender's head. Standing before Judge August Hahn in the Pacific County courtroom, Judge Hahn said, Larry, the days of chivalry are over. 30 days. Thank you. Okay. It's kind of a big time in America for cuisine and all that, and cooking shows and all kinds of stuff like that. There's good cooks and bad cooks on boats, ships, whatever. So, you know, there's a lot of, man, you get some good chow, you got high morale. And I've been with some can opener jockeys, I call them. If they would have dropped one of those overboard, we all would have starved to death. Blair Miner's brother Walter, they sent him out to buy groceries one time. Shit, he came back with ding-dongs and Hostess cupcakes, gummy bears. I don't know, you know. Anyway, Walter's a good guy. But anyway, so this one's called Leftovers, and this is, yeah, it'll say it all in the poem here. Well, I was with old Blair Miner in the Columbian Star. He was one fine skipper and a hell of a fish boat cook. His claim to fame was a big old copper-bottom kettle pressed up with chili, stew, or chicken and dumplings. Hell, a deckhand never had it so good. He'd give her a sniff and a stir, and always say, yep, we're gonna be eating on this shit for days. Well, me and my wife went to New York, went to a restaurant full of hanging ferns and eat dorks. Yeah, it was a Highliner joint up in Midtown Manhattan. Had more stars than General George Patton. Well, I perused the menu and was kind of confused. Everything was black and something or other and vodka infused. Well, the waiter well short of my entree and Nouvelle cuisine. Had one pigeon neck and 2 fava beans. Well, I bit my tongue, but I just had to say, yep, we're gonna be eating on this shit for days. Well, my wife reared back and barked both my shins. She slapped a snooze drool right on my chin. I asked her, honey, what the hell did I say? Well, she said, you said, we're gonna be eating on this shit for days. Well, later tonight when you're tucked in your bed, this here poem will be doing jumping jacks in your head. Next time you're stirring a stew pot, I guarantee you'll be repeating old Blair Miner's phrase, yep, we're gonna be eating on this shit for days. I can't remember what time we started. 2 minutes, okay. Figure eights, well, if you go to see it ain't a mop, first thing you learn is to call it a swab. It ain't hard, you just take her by the handle and start swabbing. Well, you can tell a deck ape that's been beyond Tillamook Rock by watching how he handles a swab. He won't squish her fore and aft like some scissor bill in a palatial suburban cul-de-sac home. He'll swing her thwartship like an old South China sea sailor with tattoos on his dome. Well, it's all in the hips, the elbows, and wrists. You kind of dance a little like you got to take a Subic Bay San Miguel piss. And once in a while, it's been known to happen. Some tomato might come aboard and see in action. Well, you got to change it. You got to shift your rudder and change your course. You don't want to look like some kind of swab jockey south end of a horse. You get her attention, maybe a date. Start getting down with the old figure eight. They give her that old Jack Nicholson leer and a nod. Start swirling thwartship, figure eights on deck with a swab, hips, elbows, wrists. A jigger, a macho with a sensuous twist. Yeah, you'd be pretty as a T2 tanker cutting through Azul Caribbean seas. That old figure eight'll make her weak in the knees. Well, swabbing the deck sure changed my life. That's how I met my own loving wife. Yeah, I sweep and swab every deck in the whole damn house, and I guarantee you, I still get her aroused. It's been 41 years, and she keeps taking a bait when I start getting down with the old figure eight. Thank you, thank you, thank you.